only about a quarter of those who go through Navy SEAL training actually make it.
Yeah.
It's an astoundingly low percentage. What's the difference between those who succeed and those who fail?
Yeah, there's only one thing that we all have in common, and it isn't our physical fitness. It's the fact that we didn't quit. And that's the only thing we have in common. Because when you take a look at the young men that graduate from SEAL training, I mean, I'm 6'2", and I was 6'2", about 195 when I went through training. I was actually big for a SEAL. Most SEALs are between about 5'8" and 5'10". They're kind of medium build, wiry guys. But we had, of course, the Munchkin crew, the little guys, 5'4", 5'5", which were a terrific boat crew. And in my class, we had an American Indian, we had, African Americans, we had, Polish, French, we had a lot of first generation kids. And the only thing that we had in common when it was all done was we didn't quit. And the reason that's so important, I think, for a SEAL is not about the concern, are you going to quit on the mission? Because the mission sometimes fills you full of adrenaline and you just keep going. But you're going to have 1,000 opportunities to quit in your career. In the military, you move every couple of years. It's hard on your family. You can always find reasons why you're just not going to move another time. It's hard on your family. It's hard on your friends. It's hard on everything. And so there's a lot of opportunities to quit on your family, to quit on your friends, to quit on the mission. But if you have learned early on that the one thing that sets you apart is that you don't quit, then you can make it through those tough times. And those are the men we need to continue to lead the SEAL community.
But that training has to be excruciating at times. It has to be really, really difficult. What do you summon in order to get through in the toughest times? Because it's one thing to have a tough job. It's another thing to go through SEAL training, right? That's got to be the most rigorous imaginable. Yeah. What gets you through?
Yeah, I think it is, at least for me, I can't speak to everyone, but for me, it was, as simple as it sounds, I didn't want to be a quitter. I didn't want someone to think that I wasn't tough enough to make it through. And so I think for a lot of these young men, it is, to them, it's a validation of, I mean, in this day and age, it sounds, cliche maybe, or maybe it doesn't sound inappropriate, but it's a validation of their manhood in terms of their toughness. Are they tough enough to make it through? But they summons it from everywhere. I'm a man of faith. You summons it from God. You summons it from your family. A lot of them summons it from the men around them. I mean, the thing that we call ourselves the SEAL teams for a reason, because it takes a team to get the job done. And when you go through SEAL training, that day that you're stumbling, your swim buddy will pick you up and go, come on, brother, we need to keep moving. And then when he stumbles, you pick him up. And so it all kind of comes together. But I don't think there's any one thing that you can say, this is what everybody has in common that allows them to make it through training, except that they were convinced when they came in they weren't going to quit.
Can you teach somebody to be courageous? Can you train somebody to summon courage and overcome fear?
I don't know that you can train somebody. What you can train somebody to do is to do their job. And there are so many times when you are, you're doing an after-action report and you're talking to a young soldier who, charged a machine gun nest or saved his buddies or whatever it was, and invariably when you talk to them, they say, look, I was just doing my job. I was doing what I was trained to do. And I would offer that that's a large part of it. You know when you're being trained that, okay, my job is to do this and I'm going to stay here, fighting the enemy in my field of fire, whatever it happens to be. But then there's a point where it is the fight or flight. And that's when you see the real courage come out. If there is a way out of the problem set, those that don't have the courage will run. Those that do will stay and fight. And it is always, again, this may not come out quite right, but a lot of people think it is about, the values we hold dear, the flag, and yes, that is part of it. But it is more about this connection. It's about the man or the woman on your left and right. How much do you care about them? Are you willing to sacrifice your life so that they can live? I had a general I used to work for talked about kind of the 4 stages. He said, look, we all go through this stage when we're young men in particular, you know, and I went through it with SEAL training. You have this challenge. Okay, there's a challenge before me. I'm going to overcome that challenge. And then the challenge becomes an adventure. And for me, I'm sailing around the world. I'm jumping out of airplanes, locking out of submarines. I'm doing the sorts of things that I always wanted to do. And then it becomes a profession. And when I was about 15 years in, I became a commanding officer. And it's a profession. It is the profession of arms. And you value that profession of arms. And you learn everything you can. But at some point in time, it becomes a calling. And it is when it becomes a calling that it has this, you know, this effect on you that is hard to explain to people.